Morning breaks, and as you stir awake, you are immediately enveloped by an overwhelming sense of despair. Craving a caffeinated drink, you step outside your home and make your way to a nearby cafe. "Coffee, please," you request from the barista. "Milk or no milk?" they inquire. "Definitely milk," you respond. "Colombian or Brazilian beans?" "Colombian," you reply, though it makes no real difference to you. From northern or southern Colombia, they continue. "Honestly, I have no preference." "Good choice," they say. "Do you want beans sourced from 3,0, 0 or 4,0, 0 feet?" You say, exasperated, "What does it matter? I don't care." The barista insists there are about 15 0 growers in that area. "Do you want your grower to like or dislike rappers with Lil in their names?" They probe. "What? I don't care about that, either," you exclaim, trying to dismiss the seemingly absurd conversation. They continue with examples: Lil Pump, Lil Yachty, Lil Uzi Vert. You interject with more ridiculous names: Lil Chair, Lil Table, Lil Dachshund. The barrister remarks that Buddhists view life in a certain light, suggesting a perpetual cycle of seeking happiness only to find dissatisfaction, a state known as dukkha. This cycle of rebirth is called samsara, where we exist, learn, die, and are reborn, all in pursuit of enlightenment. But what is enlightenment? How does one achieve wisdom? And what is up with giraffes' tongues? Seriously, though, just look at them. This year has certainly been peculiar. To delve deeper, we should talk about Siddhartha Gautama, better known by his title, the Buddha. Our story begins in Nepal, approximately 2,500 years ago. Siddhartha is born into a royal family, shielded by his father from all unpleasantness within the confines of a grand palace. Up until the age of 29, he remains unaware of life's harsh realities. One day, during an outing, Siddhartha encounters the sick, the aged, and the deceased, and it dawns on him, as friends of mine say, that the universe can be a pretty gnarly place. Shortly after, he departs his kingdom in search of a method to eliminate human suffering. It's a lengthy narrative, but ultimately, he decides to sit under a tree, pledging not to rise until he comprehends the true nature of the mind. The demon Mara approaches him, attempting to distract him from his quest for enlightenment. However, Siddhartha remains resolute, eventually achieving enlightenment and entering nirvana, which literally means to blow out or extinguish. This moment marks his transformation into the Buddha, the awakened one, free from the three poisons of delusion, greed, and hate. One might imagine he is, as my adventurous friends say, quite thrilled. Thus, Buddhism, a major world religion, begins to take shape. The well-known figure with a round belly and a smile is often mistaken for the Buddha. However, this figure is likely Budai, a 10th century monk sometimes identified as Maitreya, the future Buddha. This brings us into the realm of Buddhist philosophy, which is quite fascinating. Buddhists lack a traditional creation myth. The universe wasn't created through a sneeze or a spoken word. Instead, they hold some rather mind-bending concepts about time. In Buddhist and Hindu thought, cosmic time is segmented into epochs known as kalpas. When queried about the duration of one kalpa, the Buddha supposedly compared it to the time required to grind a mountain measuring 16 miles in every direction down to the size of a seed using a silk cloth, rubbed only once a century. So, it takes a while. In certain interpretations, Siddhartha Gautama wasn't the first Buddha. Others have existed before and will come after. The next Buddha in our current era and kalpa is anticipated to be Maitreya, presumably depicted by the jovial figure we discussed. Fast forward approximately 45 years, and the Buddha passes away around 483 BC. Skipping ahead a couple of millennia, we find Buddhism has diversified into numerous schools, one being Tibetan Buddhism, represented today by the Dalai Lama, often seen as akin to the Pope for Buddhists, though not precisely so. The Dalai Lama isn't the head of all Buddhism. He is the spiritual guide of Tibetan Buddhism, identified through a process of finding reincarnated children after a Dalai Lama's death. The first Dalai Lama emerged around 700 years ago as a humble child from a cattle pen, growing to become a respected teacher, rumored to have achieved Buddhahood before passing. Then came the second Dalai Lama, who identified himself as such around the age of 4, and was confirmed as the first reincarnation. His successor appeared shortly after his death at 67. The sixth Dalai Lama's story is intriguing. He was identified a bit late, and upon reaching maturity, refused to take full vows. Stories of him often depict him indulging in drunken nights in Lhasa's nightlife instead. However, he also penned romantic poetry that occasionally crossed into suggestive territory. While Tibetan Buddhism is one of many branches across all schools, including Mahayana and Theravada, the Four Noble Truths stand universally acknowledged. They state that 1. Existence is fraught with dukkha, or dissatisfaction. 2. Desire leads to suffering as we endlessly seek things, whether money, enjoyment, or the soft fur of a cat, and once achieved, we yearn for more. 3. Suffering ceases with the end of craving. 4. One can overcome suffering by following the Eightfold Path, essentially a rigorous discipline for Buddhists. Let's also mention the 3 marks of existence, which are essential to understanding what it means to be alive. The first is dukkha, dissatisfaction. The second is anicca, or impermanence. The nature of reality is transient, always evolving. You may respond, of course, that's quite profound, but it's the fundamental truth we often overlook. The third mark is anatta, which speaks to the nature of self. Months ago, I contracted a certain virus, and during my confinement, became utterly absorbed in a game called Town of Salem. In this game, players assume random roles, either as townsfolk or antagonists, which quickly illuminates a peculiar truth. We often dislike those with opposing roles while empathizing with our own. This mirrors real life, where we play predetermined parts, student, employee, etc., and it can blur the lines between who we are and who we present to the world. According to Buddhism, the essence of our existence is not just in external identities, but also internally, where thoughts and sensations abound without revealing a true self. The Buddhist teachings suggest the folly in our obsession with a fixed identity, and instead propose recognizing the fluidity of our being. We often note that while we may not be able to step into the same river twice, in truth, we may not even manage it once, as everything is in a constant state of flux. Though one can conquer multitudes in battle, the greatest victor is the one who masters themselves, states the Dhammapada. Achieving self-control is a noble pursuit, albeit a challenging one amidst life's chaos. Currently, society grapples with similar issues as individual struggles. In 1986, the tragic explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger revealed uncomfortable truths about our technology-driven era. While remarkable progress has occurred since then, many continue to live in extreme poverty with dwindling resources. Despite advancements that have lifted numerous individuals from poverty, significant populations endure hardship, and many lack access to necessities like clean water. Concerns multiplied as thousands die from preventable causes daily, while the staggering figures reflect systemic failures that remain unresolved. At some point, humanity must prioritize addressing these matters, ensuring that basic needs are met and striving for contentment, rather than sinking into despair. As we navigate technological progress, we must also reflect on our collective well-being and challenges as a species. Everything we see, a manifestation of our societal choices, can be reshaped. Buddhism persists for millennia because it responds to fundamental questions about suffering and our nature. As we venture forward, the real liberation lies in confronting our earthly dilemmas, acknowledging impermanence, and navigating our intricate identities. Amidst dramatic technological advancements, genuine wisdom is equally vital. The Kardashev scale categorizes civilizations based on their energy consumption, yet perhaps we also need to measure civilizations by their capacity for wisdom. Each step we take toward resolving human issues illuminates our potential to create a better world, one where suffering diminishes and life flourishes. As we grow and learn together, we should aim for a future where kindness prevails and all beings can coexist harmoniously. Until that day arrives, we navigate this complex existence as best we can, with the hope that we can emerge wiser and more compassionate.